It's a great day in Kershaw County. Thank you all for coming. This is the county that's handled hurricanes and tornadoes, and now we have a virus or two to handle. Not to say that any of these are minor, but we are great people, and we have a challenge that we need to do, and we are stronger together as a county, and we're going to pull together on that. We have some other fascinating issues that we'll get after. We're now called to order. We have a full quorum. And with that, I'd ask you to stand for the invocation and the pledge by Mr. Tucker. Thank you.
Let us bow our heads. Lord, Father God Almighty, once again we come to you as humbly as we know how, asking for your grace and mercy as you have always shown upon us. We thank you tonight, and we thank you this week for all that you're doing for us. We'd like to say a special prayer for the victims of the coronavirus, and ask that you bless this nation and heal this world. Lord, Father, we're a little lost now, but we know that when all's said and done, that you are still in control. Bless this council, our minds and our hearts as we deliberate the people's business. And Lord, Father, continue to take your blood of shield around our men and women as giving us our freedoms and liberties that this country assures us of. We ask all these things in your precious Son, Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Tucker. We move now to public comments. Tommy, can you take us through that, Mr. Morgan?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman, members of council, we have 7 individuals who signed up to speak tonight, approximately 4.5 minutes per individual. The first would be Mr. Benjamin Tobin, speaking on open forum.
Say again the name, please.
Yes, sir, it's Benjamin Tobin, speaking
Mr.
on...
Tobin, good to see you again.
Yes,
Please come on up, and as you do so, please be advised this is a time for comment, not an exchange of question and answer, and kindly keep it in the time limit and within the decorum of this body. After you, sir.
Good afternoon, everybody. Hope everybody's doing well. I'll keep it simple. Open forum. Can you and will you have an open forum? Would you accept the invitation if somebody has open forum for other council members and their constituents? I know you're not able to answer that. And by this, to hear the questions of concern by everybody. Work together for an answer and viable solution. This is not an opportunity to vent, but to be responsible, to seek solutions for humanity. That's all I have to say.
Sure, good to see you again. Thank you very much indeed. Sir, Mr. Morgan.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman, next would be Mr. Alan Cobb, speaking on the park.
Yes, sir.
Good evening, gentlemen. This is no way an endorsement of the park. I still don't agree with the Riverwalk. But I went down there yesterday and looked at all the flood damage, and it looked pretty bad. I had some ideas I'd want to throw in. To start with, maybe some inmates from the Department of Corrections to help clean up every time there's a flood. We don't want that kind of debris laying around when people are trying to walk. It needs a lot of work from the flood. Next thing, perhaps you could redesign the ground so the water will flow off better and drain better, so when there is a flood, it'll dry up quicker. And I know where I live, if you, when they scrape the roads, they get dirt, and you can come down there and sign a waiver and get some. Perhaps we can use dirt from the county to build up certain areas so the drainage will be better. And another thing, we need to secure the picnic tables. I didn't see any down there. I don't know if it floated away, and there's a rumor about a porta potty floating away. That wouldn't be good to see in the evening state paper come visit Kershaw County with a picture of a porta john floating down the river. And lastly, I didn't know this, driving a truck, I somehow missed it. But anyway, in 2008, the purchase of 122 acres for $946,232. Let's consider selling that. We got other things we need to do. From what I understand, this has been a difficult place to build on, to build a road on. So why don't we sell that and use the money for things we really need? And while I got a minute, I want to slap an endorsement in here for Victor Dabney. I'm going to vote for Victor, and I'd like to see as many people in Kershaw County vote for Victor Dabney also.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Morgan?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Next would be Mr. Mark Root speaking on KCSD safety.
Say again the last name.
I have Root, I believe.
Mr. Root, please, sir. Good afternoon.
That's correct, just Root. Again, my name is Mark Root. We're here to discuss the elementary school children's safety, specifically procedures that happen during the delayed start. My wife is heavily involved. She's on the parent council for the school. She's with our son at swim tonight. That's why she's not here. Our elementary school students are sitting in the hall on the hard floor from 7 a.m. to 8:05 every Wednesday morning, wasting time on their Chromebooks instead of using time for academics. First, there's not enough staff to adequately follow safety protocols in case of an emergency. Roll call isn't taken until after the children reach their classrooms after 8 o'clock. How do you count the children if you don't know how many are there, if they have to evacuate? How do you effectively lock down children if needed when the required or recommended ratio of adults to children is 1 to 30, and each adult has almost double that during this time? There are not enough volunteers to help. My wife has been a volunteer every week this year when she's available, and most days she's the only volunteer that shows up at Midway. Dr. Robbins said during the parent cabinet meeting, the first parent cabinet meeting, that additional resources would be provided if requested. I know for a fact our principal has requested additional help several times and never received any of it. Additionally, if you ask any teacher, elementary age students cannot sit unfocused for that long without damaging their learning. All the teachers that we've spoken to basically say that Wednesday is a throwaway day because it takes too long to get the children ready to learn anything after sitting on the floor for an hour. My wife brought this up to Dr. Robbins during the first parent cabinet meeting. After he literally shushed her, he assured her he would look into the safety concerns during delayed start on Wednesday, and this was at the first cabinet meeting on October 3rd. Nothing has been done since then. Well, almost nothing has been done since then. What they did was send a deputy to the school one time to take pictures and see what the problem was. He also stated that he personally would make a visit to Midway Elementary, where my son's in 3rd grade, during delayed start at the first cabinet meeting. He said he'd do that. He's yet to be seen at Midway for any reason at all. But I believe he's made it to every other school in Kershaw County. I also know that some of the other parents said, yeah, it's a problem, but I don't drop my kids off till after 8 o'clock. But we're very fortunate that my wife she works from home, works for herself. She can go in and do this. Most parents can't keep their kids at home for an extra hour when the bus runs on time. A little bit about my history. I'm a non-combat disabled veteran. I've trained in multiple styles of martial arts for over 20 years before I became disabled. I was in the 82nd Airborne, fell out of the sky one too many times. I was also a volunteer EMT when I lived in Pennsylvania, and I'm currently on the South Carolina State Guard Water Rescue Team. My current job is as a process safety specialist. This basically means I look at a facility's design and try to figure out worst case possible scenario. Then I'm responsible for trying to eliminate, if possible, or reduce the risk. This is just to say that my job is looking at worst case scenario. What can happen with what you're doing? So because of this, I can identify several ways delayed start poses a problem. First, if there was a fire, there is no way to safely ensure that all the children are out of the school. Also, remember, roll call is not taken while they're in the hallway, and there's not enough teachers or parents to watch all of them. So how can you safely say everyone is out of the fire zone? Next, if there happens to be a fight between the children, we're talking elementary school kids, they're gonna fight. It might not be stopped before something devastating happens, because the only teacher watching those 60 plus kids might be dealing with a single child on the other end of the hallway for some reason. Something bad can happen there. And then finally, if, God forbid, an evil person wanted to cause serious harm to the children or staff, there is no way that the one deputy assigned to the school could respond in time to prevent loss of life. I've been to the school several times in the morning, and while I've seen the car, I've never seen the deputy. I'm sure this means they're patrolling the school, doing what they need to do, but if you've ever been to Midway, there's a couple hallways and corners that don't connect. If he's on the other end of the school and somebody comes in and starts havoc over here, there is no way he's gonna get there before we have a lot of death. No way, it's not gonna happen. Additionally, because of my background, I don't want to say any of the specifics about how stuff could happen. I know for a fact I could get into that school and cause major harm with very little effort. I know it's possible. I'm not going to do it, obviously. I want my kids safe. I want everybody else's kids safe. But it's possible. If somebody wants to hurt those children, there's nothing to stop them. How are unarmed, untrained teachers and parents going to stop someone from doing that?
Mr. Root, if you can find a way to conclude. Thank you, sir. Please go ahead. And
Right.
and
Sorry about that.
Wrap it up, please.
So what I want to know is, why is this delayed start happening? My opinion, based on what I've heard, is Dr. Robbins does it that Wednesday morning because he just doesn't want to do it after hours. That's what I've heard. I don't know if it's true. But I can also guarantee that if anything happens to my child or anyone else in that school because of this, I will hold him personally responsible. I'd like to end saying the faculty is doing an amazing job with the limited resources they have. They're doing everything they can, but it's not enough.
Sure, thank you
Thank you.
very much, Mr. Root.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman.
Mr.
Next,
Morgan.
we have Mr. John Rice speaking on the water park.
Thank you, Jimmy. Good job. Mr. Rice, go right ahead, sir.
I'm still trying to wrap my head around the fact that last meeting we had, when the item was going to be added to the agenda as an emergency. I know that wasn't the term that was used, but it was termed as an emergency. Upon commentary with Mr. Gainey, who was evidently the sponsor of this, he states that it wasn't until the morning of the council meeting, February 25th, he was informed of certain things, and it was a go, and it needed to be added to the agenda, so he spoke with the councilman. I'm again wondering, if it was a go, why the paperwork or the prep work couldn't start and then be added to today's agenda, as it will still need 3 hearings and a vote to pass. Again, it's an emergency, and does this set a precedence on what an emergency is to you guys, to what y'all consider an emergency? Who's to say in the future if another councilman introduces something they want to add to the agenda, they come back to this right here and say, well, we wanted to add the festival at the water park as an emergency. That's not, is that considered an emergency? Whose idea is it to say it's an emergency or not? And to be honest, I looked on tonight's agenda, and to be in an emergency last week to be added to the agenda, unless I don't read it, it's not on tonight's agenda. So if it was that big of an emergency, it should be on tonight's agenda. Some of my concerns with this are fire, EMS, security, and which Mr. Gainey explained that he'll have festival insurance added to it. Food trucks. If memory serves me correctly, there was an ordinance or something that council passed or made a comment to the effect of no food vendors to protect local businesses. Alcohol sales. They are forbidden on county sites. In order to change this ordinance, it would need to be introduced by a member of council, 3 hearings and a vote also. And nothing negative, but you have a pastor, a devout Methodist, a devout Mormon, and some of you, I don't know what your religious backgrounds are. So which one of you is going to be the evil to propose this change, introduce this, to go on the agenda, to add alcohol sales to it? And then once that's done, you're going to say, you vote yes for it. Does that make you less evil? If it's not allowed, it shouldn't be allowed. And if I heard correctly, they're going to say pay for parking. How many spaces are available to park there, and you still have enough room for the venue to take place? And I believe I asked the question is it legal to even charge us to park on county property such as that? What Mr. Gainey's doing, I applaud him, and it's going to bring revenue and things to the county, but is it legal to do these things? If that's the case, I'd like to rent out some county property and charge people to get in. It needs to be, this needs to be brought maybe to the attention of citizens in Kershaw County, but maybe take the time and not rush it so it'll be a beneficial and a success. The county, and I added something that Mr. Tobin said earlier, about open forums. I mean, these things can be done in open forums. We can ask questions and have contact with you guys. You say email, you'll call back. I've done it with numerous of you and never heard a response from any of you. So that's a lie. You know, and again, like I said, it was a big deal, but it's not on tonight's agenda. And I'm going to leave you guys with one last phrase, and I hope that you all maybe listen to it and think about it. You don't have to abide by it, but it's very smart. You need to crawl before you walk and walk before you run. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Mr. Morgan?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Next, we have Mr. Darrell Ogburn speaking on the Prisma purchase of Kershaw Health.
Yeah. All right, Mr. Chairman, good to see you. Please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the County Council. I am here today to represent the Healthcare District of Kershaw County in regard to the Prisma Health intent to purchase Kershaw Health Hospital. After we reviewed the proposed sale, the board is encouraged about the possibility of a South Carolina-based company again owning and running our local hospital. The board is hoping for stability in our local hospital management that has been lacking for the last several years. The board is hopeful that the proposed new buyer will make Kershaw a focus of its investments and growth. The board will continue to closely monitor any owner's good faith compliance with its lease obligations and enforce those obligations to our local community. The board recognizes that a change to a nonprofit owner will have substantial revenue impact on our local communities. Therefore, the board encourages the proposed buyer and the current owner to engage in good faith conversations with local governments to assist in mitigating that impact. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Can we have a copy of that? That's very helpful, Mr. Ogburn. Appreciate it. Thank you, sir. Mr. Morgan?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Next, we have Mr. Richard White speaking on the U.S. Census.
Excellent. Mr.
Speaking
White?
on what?
The census.
U.S. Census.
Evening, Council. Evening, public here in Kershaw County. My name is Richard White. I'm the Partnership Specialist for the United States Census Bureau that's responsible for here in Kershaw County. As part of the Community Partnership and Engagement Program, our mission isn't as a general awareness campaign, but as to reach out to those people at greatest risk for not being counted. Now, on Thursday, March the 12th, which is just 2 days away, the first invitations will start to be received at households throughout Kershaw County and throughout the United States. They're going to go in waves, so not everyone's going to get them all initially, but that's when the invitations, yes, I'm glad you each have a copy. That's what it's going to look like. There will be a number attached to it that's geocoded to that specific address that it's received. We don't send invitations to individuals or families, but they're sent to residential addresses. Now, in a normal year, in normal circumstances, it might be kind of a challenge to help complete the census, but obviously with surrounding conditions as they are, it's an even more of a challenge. The one great thing that you have going for you in this county is you have a wonderful team led by Mr. Conley of your planning office. He's made for an excellent liaison, very responsive. Him and his team have come up with some great ideas to promote participation in the census, not just generally, but specifically to those people that we had discussed who are at greatest risk for not being counted. And I think you have a great asset in that. What is needed is for a greater public awareness in each of the areas that each of you is a trusted voice. And that's my job, is to reach out to those trusted voices to answer any questions, anything like that. The thing I want to leave you with tonight is there's 3 major points we want to share with the community about the U.S. Census. First of all, the mission of the census is quite clear and quite simple. It's to count everybody once, only once, and in the right place. And for our sake, the right place is right here in Kershaw County. Now, the message is the 2020 census, which only happens every 10 years, and we only get this once every 10-year opportunity to do a complete count of everybody in the United States, is important, it's safe, and it's easy. Quickly, its importance. Over $675 billion is tied in annually, over $675 billion to the census head count. Representation, starting in Congress, how many House Representatives seats the state gets, all the way down to your local school boards. All across the state, and your representation in Columbia, and everything is based on that head count. So you have the money and you have the power that are tied to that, and that's very important, that we get every person counted so that the right resources and the right representation are right here in Kershaw. Now, it's easy when we're trying to remove every kind of barrier you could possibly think of. The way people are going to be invited initially to participate are online and by phone. So it's the first time that we're going to be doing it online, and that's why that geocode is very important, that census number that's going to be put on each invitation. And everybody starting March 12th is going to have the opportunity, even if they haven't received their invitation yet, to go online and complete the census. Or call in, and both the online and call-in options have 12 languages that it can be completed in. So whatever the person's most comfortable with, they can answer the census in that. And they can also call that same number and get assistance directly in one of those 12 languages for completing the census. If we haven't gotten a response by the third or the fourth mailing, the third reminder, we will send out a paper census form to all those households that we have yet to hear from. And if after the fifth mailing, the fourth reminder, we haven't heard from the household, that's when we start our non-response follow-up, where we've hired people locally, or we are in the process of hiring people locally, who will go to each of the residents and request that they complete the information on the spot, either by mailing it in, going online, on the phone, or answering for the enumerator. So those are we're trying to overcome every possible obstacle to people completing the census, and it should take about 15 minutes. There's 9 questions for the person filling it out, 7 questions for each person in their household. And we want to count everybody. We've already got our group quarters and our special enumerations that are taking place, where we're counting the homeless, we're counting people that are living in group quarter situations, say in nursing homes. You guys have a boarding school here, so we're going to be counting the students there, people in prison, on college campuses, all of that. That's already begun. And so that'll continue on through the month of April as well. So we're trying to make sure that everybody gets counted. And lastly, I want to say that it's safe, and I'm going to close with that. And there's a lot of concern for how information is received, how it's protected, and I'm going to give you 2 most important ways. First of all, as a census employee, I've sworn an oath for the rest of my life to protect the information that we collect. That's not till the next census or till my new job after the census is complete or anything like that. For the rest of my life, I have to. And if civic duty is not enough of a motivator, they've tacked on $250,000 and 5 years in prison as a great incentive. The second part is under Title 13 of the United States Code, we cannot share the personal information of anybody who submits it to the census. The only information we share is the statistics. The statistics are what the decisions are based on, and so when the final census reaches the president's desk before December 31st, 2020, or by December 31st, all he's going to have is statistical information. Beyond that, all that information that you submit is important, but we are not going to release that for 72 years. So in 2092, all the census data, all the information gets released publicly. So the next census that's going to release is 1950, and that's taking place in 2022. So again, it's important, it's safe, and it's easy. And we want to make sure that everybody's counted once, only once, and in the right place. And I thank you for your attention this evening. And I look forward to giving you all a follow-up report, because one of the great things we're going to have is the opportunity to go on the website and see that which census tracts are getting responses within the county, because the county is broken up by census tracts, and where we can focus our attention together as a team to get those responses in. Thank you, and have a great evening.
That was a great brief. Thank you, sir. Mr. Morgan.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Finally, we have Mr. Tom Webb speaking on stepping stones.
I don't see Mr. Webb here. There he is, Tom.
American liberty is at risk, as it usually is. You can just look at who is running for president on the Democratic side. Definitely some risk here. But it's, for us who have paid attention around here, there's ordinance after ordinance that seems to be county ordinances that seem to be drifting us in the direction, like so many stepping stones, into something that maybe we could look back on and say, we wish we hadn't gotten there. It's utopian hell. It's always a good idea. Somebody has a good idea, let's go there. Another idea, let's go there. And it, in the long run, it may not be such a good idea. And this kind of brings me to the story of The Sound of Music. And this occurred in Austria, World War II. Family that wanted to get out. And it's not just a made-up story, it's a Von Trapp story. And they finally settled in North Carolina. They got out. And where will we go if our country becomes this utopian hell? Depending on who is in leadership and what we as grassroots citizens allow to happen, we could end up there. So there was yodeling in that movie, and I always kind of like yodeling. And so I was thinking about, might ask my leader if I could yodel in front of y'all, but I know that you can't exchange comments here. I can't say something and you say it back to me, so I can't ask anything about it. But that kind of means that it must be all right. I could do that now. So I could yodel here in front of y'all, and I might actually break loose and do it. The thing is, if I do, the next time I come, you'll probably have an ordinance that says I can't do it. I don't think it's the way that Americans have been accustomed to things. And it kind of brings me to something that I got in the mail. I'll read something very short. South Carolina Historic Aviation Foundation. It's over at Owens Field. They have gotten an old airplane out of Lake Greenwood, and it's looking pretty good now. It's a B-25. So I get the newsletter, and something in here about the WASP. They were young women who ferried aircraft in World War II. They loved their country. It was freer back then. And I wonder eventually if we might have so many ordinances, so many rules and regulations, these stepping stones on the way to utopian hell, that you won't get anybody to volunteer for anything good anymore. Will people continue to love their country the way this woman did? So I'll read this little thing. In total, 38 WASP gave their lives serving their country. The following was written by Cornelia Fort, the first woman pilot to lose her life while ferrying a military aircraft for her country. This sums out how every one of the 1,830 WASP felt about their service. So she writes, before she was killed in an aircraft accident, military aircraft, while we were standing at attention, a bomber took off followed by 4 fighters. We knew the bomber was headed across the ocean and the fighters were going to escort it part of the way. As they circled over us, I could hardly see them for the tears in my eyes. It was striking symbolism, and I think all of us felt it. As long as our planes fly overhead, the skies of America are free, and that's what all of us everywhere are fighting for, and that we, in a very small way, are being allowed to help keep that sky free is the most beautiful thing I've ever known. So this young woman, who was very nice looking, also knew what beauty was. She knew that it was freedom. It was American freedom. And she goes on to write, I, for one, am profoundly grateful that my one talent, my only knowledge, flying, happens to be of use to my country when it was needed. That's all the luck I ever hoped to have. Wonderful people who volunteered for things when we needed them. Will they do it again? And as far as my yodeling goes, I'll save that to another time. It's too silly to do after reading this. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Mr. Morgan.
That concludes public comment.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Morgan. We now move to the next item on the agenda on the screen, which is the adoption of the business agenda. Can we have a motion on the agenda? Mr. Tucker.
I make a motion that we adopt the agenda.
Very good, sir. A second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Gardner. And do you wish to amend it, Mr. Tucker?
Yes, sir. This time, Mr. Chairman, if I may, I'd like to make a motion to add something to the agenda, which is a presentation for the coronavirus by our staff. We think is of an emergency situation and very important to the citizens here of this county. So that is my motion.
So the motion reads to add a public presentation after the adoption of the agenda.
Correct, sir.
By staff. Second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Gardner. Mr. Tucker, do you want to validate exigent circumstances, please?
Well, I think it speaks for itself. If anyone doesn't understand how important that is, they're living in somewhere in a tunnel or something. We need to address this, and the staff is taking some good quality time to put some stuff together that we need to share with our citizens, and just stop trying to spread this as best possible and keep folks safe. It's not to put them on any alert as far as, getting people scared or anything like that, but just share information.
Very good. Mr. Jones.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Members of the council, thank you so much. Listen, the administrator is going to give us a report on it.
Yes, sir, not requiring any vote or anything.
Sure.
This is going to be
He
for
normally gives
information.
us a report every meeting, and we don't have to amend the agenda for him
Well,
to get that
this is
report.
This is a presentation, not just a report, so
Okay.
it includes his staff and all.
So it will fall under the presentation part of the agenda, not his report?
That's correct.
Under the adoption of agenda.
Okay. I also have
Yes.
an amendment I'd like to make, please.
Well, let's discuss. Any further discussion on that? Yeah, Mr. Snodgrass.
Tucker, will we be, I know you said this, but I just want to state for the record, will we be voting on anything or spending any money as a result of this
No, sir.
addition to the agenda?
No cost, just a little bit of your time.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Okay, Mr. Jones, please go right ahead.
Mr. Chairman, members of council, thank you so much. I want to delete item 2 under new business, planning and zoning / planning and zoning board of appeals.
Okay. Now we have a second.
Second.
Second from Mr. Connell. Any discussion? Seeing there is none, are there any further amendments? All right, we'll take them in the order received, and then we'll vote on the agenda as fully amended. So all those in favor of deleting item number 2 under new business, so signify by raising your hand. And it's unanimous and it's deleted. Let's go to the first of the 2 amendments. All those in favor of adding the public presentation under exigent circumstances, so signify. And it's unanimous, and it's amended, so we'll now move to the agenda as amended. Can we have a motion to approve the agenda as amended? I'm sorry, we got to go through this.
That's
everybody.
okay. I make the motion that we approve the agenda as amended, Mr.
All
Chairman.
right, Mr. Tucker is second. Second from Mr. Bozard. Any further discussion? All right, we'll move to a vote. All those in favor, so signify. And it's unanimous, and the agenda is amended. And Mr. Carpenter, I hope you're ready for this presentation so early in the agenda. Please go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, members of council, is no secret at this point that Kershaw County is ground zero for this virus in South Carolina. They just confirmed earlier today that there's now 7 cases confirmed or presumptive cases in Kershaw County of the 9 in South Carolina. So 7 cases now in Kershaw are presumed or confirmed to have the coronavirus. Our goal, therefore, is to ensure that the public has a place that they can turn to for comfort, for assurance, and for information. There are a lot of rumors going around, a lot of scared people on things that they shouldn't be scared about, listening to people and sources they shouldn't be listening to. So the goal of what we're doing is to be the community's primary coronavirus resource from our local, our state, and our federal level. So when people need to know something, they'll have a number of resources they can find from us. What we're trying to do is provide helpful information about the coronavirus through calm communications that satisfies what the public needs to know. We're not trying to break any news. That's DHEC's responsibility to break the news. But we support DHEC and we support our hospital in the dissemination of this kind of information. We work closely with the school district, the city of Camden, the towns of Bethune and Elgin, as well as any other organization, to take their information as well as to share our information with them. We are directing everybody to a website page that's been created, the coronavirus webpage, which is located on the Kershaw County website. I think Danny's trying to pull up what that landing page looks like for you.
That's pretty.
Gorgeous. Oh.
Kershaw.sc.gov/coronavirus.
Information about where they can go to get a free visit, virtual visit from MUSC. That's an example of our webpage that we've created with a significant amount of information there from the CDC, DHEC, and local information as well. We also have an internal mark, which are employees, making sure our employees know what they're supposed to do. They're in contact, especially when you get our public safety, but our clerks, our individuals who work in the various departments we have, are in very close contact with the public. So making sure that our employees understand the protocols they need to follow to ensure not only their safety, but the public's as well. And then again, making sure that the general public knows and understands what the real information is out there. Again, those 7 people is too many to be confirmed or suspected. It's a whole lot less than you might believe if you heard some people talking right now. So that's the hard numbers we have. Some of the things we've done is we're creating videos to educate, in some cases humorously, our public about of some of these issues. And I'd like to show you a couple of those videos that we've created.
Lauren Decker, the children's librarian for the Kershaw County Library System. We are here today to let you know what we're doing to contain the spread of germs in our facility. Staff are all wearing gloves. We have wipes set up at the computer set stations for individuals to use to wipe down. We've got hand sanitizer stations set up. As children's librarian, I am cleaning toys on a daily basis because we play with toys in story time. And just trying to be aware. We have posters up for people to understand what would cause the spread of germs and how we can make sure that we take care of not spreading germs.
Videos as well that are available on the website. Encourage people to go to that. But we're engaging in as many ways as we can to reach out. County staff, we're prepared in the event that our employees start being affected and have to be quarantined. We have redundancy. We have mutual aid agreements with other counties lined up. Should our EMS employees be sidelined as if they become exposed, then we have other counties and other providers willing to back us up as well with that kind of service. So the basis of what you're seeing is that we're well positioned to go forward and to make sure that our public has the best information available they can. Also, I'd just like to say, I hope you see the quality of what we're starting to do with our staff and just how good we're getting at communications in this county, because all that is done within the four walls of this building, those videos and everything else you've seen. That's my report, Mr. Chairman.
Excellent. Comments, please. Mr. Bozard, first up.
Yes, Mr. Carpenter, I understand from just this afternoon's news, we got 7 in Kershaw County now?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Other comments? Is that you, Sammy?
Yes, sir.
Yep, go ahead.
Yes, sir. I'm the only one look like me there, Mr. Chairman.
You just need to stand up so I can see you.
You can say that. I just want to thank you and staff, Vic, for putting that together on these short notice, because we didn't know a lot of this stuff until the weekend. So we have moved fast within less than a day and a half. So I appreciate it. And I would like to have the deputy's signature before I leave here tonight. But thank you guys for all that you do and keeping us aware.
Yeah. Other comments?
If I can.
Yeah,
also.
Mr. Jones, right ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of council. One, I think our healthcare providers have done an outstanding job. I was at the ER last night just to tour around, kind of walk around, see what was going on. I mean, those folks have just taken charge and really pushed forward to make sure this is probably the cleanest place in Kershaw County. And I commend y'all for that. And my biggest fear is not the coronavirus. My biggest fear is fear and panic among the community. So please, folks, I just encourage you to let's all keep level heads. We're going to beat this thing. Simple as that. we've got the greatest professionals around here in Kershaw County fighting it, telling us what we need to do. And I'm talking about healthcare, not us. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Other comments? I think I need to ask Vic to give you a report on how you have daily and periodic meetings to make sure that every member of the county is here in this room sharing information back and forth. Go ahead, please.
Well, Mr. Chairman, Council, we do pull together those departments, county and state departments that are affected by this virus. We had today, we had a statewide teleconference. We'll have another one later this week where all 46 counties tie into SCEMD. We pull our own people together as well. Like I said, county and state, city representatives, fire departments, they're all here as well, to ensure that all the public safety entities, all the public service entities understand where we are and what's happening.
Other comments? I would say educate, inform, reassure is also a role up here that we have as a county. And during tornadoes and hurricanes, this room becomes the operations center and the exchange. We have a great sheriff. We have got a great medical staff. We've got great school leaders. We've got a boarding school in the CMA. And when they all come together, they understand the issue better, information flows. And then secondly, we asked our delegation to help us. Can you tell us about the meeting we had this afternoon?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman, members of council. In part because we wanted to have a better understanding from the state level, we requested and our senator set up a meeting with the director of DHEC and his cabinet serving Kershaw County. So they graciously came. We met with them at 3:30, and he gave us an update, and we discussed the procedures that are followed, how communication flows, how it needs to flow, and gave assurances of our ability and willingness to support them in whatever they needed from the counties, the cities, and the fire departments in the state. And they shared with us as well the protocols they have to follow and try to make sure the communications. They agreed to set up a daily call to those of us that are in the position of having to make decisions of our public safety of 10 to 20 minutes is needed every day to give us an update of where they are in Kershaw County and Kershaw County only, so we can best guide our resources in our county.
Yeah, and I would say that we had our representative, our senator, our mayor from Camden. We had CMA. We had Mr. Robbins from the school. To make sure I got him, of course, Daryl Ogburn from our great Kershaw County Health Services District. And all this information was shared in a way that helped us understand that at the national and state and county level, we are learning, number one. Number two, resources are growing but are not up to the tasks. So criteria and other things of that nature keep changing as we learn more. And lastly, the MUSC code that you saw on that website, just read it again, there's a free website where you can go on the website and you go to our website and it'll guide you in and it'll tell you how, if you think you have a problem or one of your loved ones does, the Medical University of South Carolina has a free website that allows you then to get care over the website. And you can then either get reassured or get directed to somebody who can help you. I'll read it again. It's musc.care. And then it comes up on your computer or your iPhone, and you put in the promotion code or the promo code of COVID-19, and you're in. Any other comments? That was exceptional. Thank you, sir. Well, let's move on now to the next item on the agenda, which is approval of minutes. They're at tab A and on your screen. Can we have a motion, please?
Make a motion.
Mr. Gardner, and a second from Mr. Bozard. Any discussion? Seeing there is none, we'll move to a vote. All those in favor, so signify. And it's unanimous. We move to the next item, which is an ordinance, a third reading of an ordinance of the County Council of Kershaw County to to amend the zoning map. It's at tab B, and there it is. This is our third go. Mr. Carpenter, please introduce it.
Mr. Chairman, members of council, you have in front of you tonight for third reading, an ordinance to rezone approximately 66 acres of land from RD2 to R15. It is previously passed council on first and second reading.
Thank you, sir. Can we have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Snodgrass, a second.
Second.
Second from Mr. Tucker. Discussion, honors to you, sir.
Yeah, sure. Just want to reiterate my support for this rezoning as it goes along with our plans to expand and see further development in this part of the county, affectionately known as East Camden. I realize there's some utility issues that we're going to work through, but I know those are coming as we get through the development phase of with planning and zoning. But happy to see this move forward, Mr. Chair, and would ask my colleagues to do the same.
Sure. Anybody else? Mr. Bozard.
Yes, Mr. Carpenter, you was asked to check on some water and stuff for that. Did you get a chance to do that? Did we make any kind of agreement with them and Cassett Water?
We haven't worked out an agreement yet, Nestor, but they're willing to sit down and discuss it. So, but there's no agreement been reached, Nestor.
Okay, very good. Others? That's been a very educational action. Thank you all for your comments over the last 3 weeks. Do we have others? Mr. Tucker, go right ahead.
Thank you. I just want to ask our director, Mr. Connolly, no changes on anything from planning and zoning? Okay, thank you.
Okay, very good. That was a no, and that's good.
Yes,
Thank you very much.
Did very well.
All right, thank you. So let's go to a vote. All those in favor, so signify. Thank you very much, and it's approved on the third reading. Let's go to the next item, which is a first reading, and there it is on screen, title only of an ordinance by Kershaw County to amend the zoning and land development regulations. It's at tab C. Mr. Carpenter, do you wish to introduce it, or should we go right into a vote?
It's been requested that we review our codes in planning and zoning, specifically under the regulations for temporary uses, to allow us to do different things at county properties that we currently can't do.
Yes, it's related to county properties. Mr. Connell, do you want to introduce it?
Yeah, I'd make a motion in title only that we approve this.
We have a second.
Second.
Second from Mr. Gardner. Any discussion?
I do.
Well, Mr. Chairman, if I might. Thank you, Mr. Jones. So this is a continuation, actually, of the item that was introduced last week as exigent, which means pressing or time sensitive. We've had interest in Kershaw County in doing larger events, something like you might see in portions of the city of Camden or over at Doco Manor, if you've been over to some of their concerts and events over there. Our code currently doesn't provide for it. You couldn't even file a permit necessarily that would allow you to do a large concert or event anywhere in Kershaw County. And this will allow legal counsel and also staff to figure out what that would look like in Kershaw County. What are the issues that we need to address and how we approach it. So I'll be interested to see the language that's proposed and what we should be concerned with as we move forward.
Okay, very good. Other comments? Mr. Jones indicated, please. Mr. Jones?
Thank you. Mr. Carpenter.
Yes, sir.
Reading that, give me some of the things that would change that are not allowed now that would be allowed then. Just give me a few of them.
Among other things, you would be able to have permits that would allow you to put food trucks on county properties. It would allow you to sell beer and wine on county property. And any other item that is specifically enumerated that you can't in that section would allow us then, by exception, to allow.
And that'd be all the parks,
Yes, sir.
West Park, Larry Doby's, all the rest.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, Mr. Connor.
Among those mentioned, there are several other issues which our code doesn't apparently seem to address, which are very significant. I was surprised to learn that some of them weren't addressed. For example, insurance requirements, number of attendees and limitations related to it, security requirements, and securing quotes beforehand if it's Kershaw County law enforcement that would provide overtime services for security, emergency services, and also parking. So we really haven't addressed these in our code at the moment for large events in Kershaw County. And it's something that I think we should look at. I really think we should consider whether or not we want to do it, how it would look in Kershaw County. We know there's interest, but right now if somebody said, hey, I want to come and have a great event in the county portion, so I'm not talking about the city of Camden or town of Elgin that might have other requirements and already have it be permissible, we would have to, in essence, turn them away and say, we're just not ready legally to bring you in yet. You can't file a permit that we could approve.
I think, Mr. Tucker, please.
Yes, sir. I just want to get some clarification. Well, first, let me make this statement. I think this is where some of the public might have lost this on the agenda because it's in title only. And correct me, Mr. I almost call you DeBose, Mr. Morgan and Mr. Carpenter. Tonight votes for none of that, which Ben has rattled off, Councilman Jones has rattled off. It's for title only. And I'm just trying to make sure that all of us understand because we have different views when it comes down to certain sections of what you're going to be putting together for a second reading. But tonight, authorize none of that stuff until we read it again in second reading. Am I correct?
That's correct. It just starts the process.
Right. It gets the process started. Just wanted to make that clear because some of them have religious beliefs up here that they don't want to vote for the alcohol, and I do respect and understand that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Jones, are you through, Sammy?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Mr. Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of council. Listen, I just think that's pretty vague, even though it's first reading and title only. It's just pretty vague. I know that many times that we've done title only, it had the nuts and bolts in it. So I won't support this based on it's just too vague.
Other comments? I'll say that we have a staff that's pretty busy right now. Got a budget coming up. There's a potential major change to the budget that all of us up here know about that may be impacting how we go forward. We've had a rather busy week with viruses and with the new hospital announcement. And so all these add up to a busy staff. I've seen it personally. I've never seen the staff so busy. So I'm prepared to allow this to go for in title only. I understand reluctance on the part of some and the absence of detail, but I am seized, as Mr. Connell is, to seeing if we can redirect the effort of the staff to get this thing expeditiously through. And I'd like the attorney and planning and zoning and others leaders under Mr. Carpenter's leadership to see if we can get a little spare manpower to move it to details so that the objections to the lack of detail might be met on the next time we meet for a second reading. Mr. Bozard, please.
Yes, Mr. Carpenter. What brought this about? Is this something that y'all been working on for a while, or is this something that's come up in the last week or so?
Well, it's come up in regards to ways we could use the river park specifically for outdoor events, or any facility, though. As Mr. Connell pointed out, the way our current ordinances are structured, we really can't allow uses at a lot of these facilities that would be encouraging of events that people would want to come to. If you can't sell food from food vendors, if you can't, in some cases, buy beer, wine, then that's going to change the kind of events that'll come to them. So it just gives us more opportunities in addition to the other uses that also would be able to, on a case-by-case basis, allow.
You said beer and wine. What are you talking about? That they can bring it in? You gonna sell it or what?
That would be all how you write the rules. I would be surprised if you allow anyone to bring it in, but if you have a licensed vendor as part of the process, but that's what Ms. Connell was talking about. The actual meat of this would still be written out. So council is not voting on the meat yet. We're starting the process of writing it, so council can then have input and ultimately come to a conclusion of whatever the final ordinance is to vote it or not vote it.
Well, I'm not gonna approve anything, or vote for anything that's gonna bring beer or wine on our property. It needs to stay off our property in bars or home or wherever else. It don't need to be on our property. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Do we have other comments?
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, Mr. Connell, go right ahead.
I certainly am not advocating for the consumption of alcohol, as maybe is being implied up here. I believe that people have freedom, that they can drink if they want to. But personally, I don't drink. What I think's inconsistent is in Kershaw County, let me just use the most recent and largest fundraiser I'm aware of in county history for scholarships in Kershaw County. You had the West Wateree Rotary Club and the Camden Rotary Club raise, I think it was about $80,000 net, somewhere around $65,000 to $70,000 at Camden City Arena for a wild game dinner. So that's within Kershaw County, but because it's within city limits, they followed the allowances and code that they have there. I believe they had some alcohol there. I think a local business, Gorget Distillery, had some tastings or something. I don't know. That's not really what I'm involved in at all. I cooked all the meat for the event and was ecstatic that we raised that much money to give to scholarships for local high school kids. If we wanted to do that event in the county, we couldn't have done it because there's not even a permit that would accommodate the size, the insurance, the issues that I listed off just don't get addressed. We've never had to deal with it, and I think we should look at it. I don't know how I'll ultimately decide on some of these issues myself, but I think it's something we should look at. I just saw a great event happen in the city of Camden. This would be probably a month or two ago, and raised a lot of money that's going to go to scholarships, but we couldn't do it in the county proper. So, anybody's welcome to make an amendment to what the staff and legal counsel proposed. They're still putting it together. We've been meeting several times over the last number of months to try to figure this out, and just don't have the language ready yet. Not necessarily even the nuts and bolts. So that's really what I had to share, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Other comments? Mr. Gardner, go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, I think, in less than 2 weeks, you're going to have the Carolina Cup, and it's been run about 75, 80 years. I don't know the exact number, and they have, I expect if you go out there and check most of those spaces, you're going to find alcohol. And it's a pretty big economic impact on Kershaw County, so I think that that's a pretty big event, and I know it's different than what we're talking about, but at the same time, it's brings a lot of money to us here in Kershaw County, to a lot of vendors and other folks. So, and nobody seems to be wanting to close down the Cup. So,
yeah, Mr. Bozard.
Oh, yes, there are some that want to close the Cup down, but they don't want to speak up. But you got to remember, that's state property and not county property. I'm talking about county property.
Thank you. Mr. Snodgrass, can we add to the theological discussion?
I don't think anyone's ready for that yet. But so, Mr. Carpenter, this isn't creating an ordinance; it's creating a framework for an ordinance. Am I hearing that correctly?
Yes, sir. It just starts a process where the ordinance would actually be drafted, and the various items would be added to it that Council and Planning Commission would like to see in it before it would come back to council.
Right. So, like, for example, like food trucks, I mean, it's not in here, but this is a framework that we could insert
Absolutely.
food trucks into. Is that the intention here? Is next second reading where the amendments come from us, or planning and zoning going to flesh this out a little bit more?
Well, planning and zoning would come back with proposals. The council could look at, council could consider it. It's going to have to go to planning commission, understand still, before council really votes on it.
Okay.
So there's a time frame and a process. It's not going to happen in the next 30 days because planning commission has to have it. They have to work with it. Then it comes back to council. Council then gets it to work with it. So
right.
There's a lot of opportunity for input and changes to make sure that things council wants in there are in there.
Okay.
I think I'd be correct to say that Mr. Connell and I would be happy to lend advice on the content, okay? Mr. Tucker, you want to say something?
I was just picking back on what Mr. Carpenter was saying. There was no other way to get this bus rolling because there's not a citizen requesting this or a variance. It's coming from council, so we're following the process through the legal channels that we have.
I see Mr. Jones has his hand up, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of council. Listen, mine's not about any specific item. There's no items up there. And I would have I think we're putting the cart before the horse. Why couldn't we have gone ahead and gotten some information together, some thoughts and ideas? And I know you can do that for first reading. Normally that's what happens. It's just, I don't know, it just doesn't make sense to me why we're doing this tonight without any of the material in it. And I don't buy the excuse, everybody's been overworked. We all have been busy.
Other comments? I think I'm ready to move to a vote. I think there's been very good dialogue, got guidance, and we're ready to conclude this. All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Mr. Tucker, Mr. Gardner, Mr. Burns, and Mr. Connell. All those opposed, so signify. Mr. Jones, Mr. Bozard, and Mr. Snodgrass. The motion passes and moves to second reading. Thank you very much. We move now to the next item on the agenda. It's new business, urgent discussion of proposed sale of Kershaw Health, Prisma Health, and the serious financial and service impacts it is expected to bring to Kershaw County citizens. Do you want to further elaborate? It's at tab D. There's a press announcement. Mr. Carpenter.
Mr. Chairman, members of council, as we know, on Thursday of last week, an announcement was made by Prisma Health and LifePoint Health of the purchase of LifePoint Health by Prisma Health. No details were released, but it was made clear to us that as part of that there would be an ending to the fee that is paid to the county by LifePoint Health, Kershaw Health, which we have been using to operate our EMS system. This is a very serious issue. We have no knowledge of the terms of the deal. We were not included in any discussions. We were not considered stakeholders, even though the public health of our citizens could be at risk. We don't know. We really don't know any of the details of this. They haven't been released to us at this point. So as we are preparing budgets and trying to anticipate operating an EMS system in the next fiscal year, there's a lack of knowledge on my part and staff part, and to my knowledge, council's part, of what's actually going to happen in Kershaw County as a result of this sale. So it was very important. I felt that the council consider some of these points and issues.
Very good. We need a constructive discussion and a motion. I think this calls for outside attorney advice. So do you wish to have an executive session, and how would you construct that?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman, members of council, I would like to request an executive session at this time in order to discuss some of the contractual implications of the sale of the hospital. We have outside counsel present that would also be attending on behalf of the county as it relates to the executive session.
So the lineup is yourself, Mr. Carpenter, and outside counsel.
Yes, sir.
All right, very good. Can we have a motion to go into executive session? Mr. Tucker.
Yes, sir. I'd like to request a motion to go into executive session for contractual matters to include all personnel listed by our county attorney.
Thank you. And a second?
Second.
Second for Mr. Gardner. A discussion. Mr. Snodgrass.
Is there information that has been made privy to us that the public doesn't already know about the sale of this? I obviously, I guess you're going to tell us in the executive session, so you probably can't answer that question. So I guess do we have more information than we had last week when this came out?
I think there's not necessarily direct information that we have received. We have also ascertained some other documents, but again, with the advice of outside counsel and presented to this council here, I think it would be important to discuss, again, pursuant to 30-4-70, subsection A2, some of the contractual and legal implications, and that's why we wanted to present that in executive session to council.
So the council who's here to assist us, they're more comfortable in doing this first?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay.
Okay. Other comments?
Yeah,
Mr. Jones, go right ahead.
I don't buy it. I think we ought to have a discussion in open session. Look what we put in the paper. I've got a copy of it right here. We're pretty straightforward as to how this county, or I guess the majority of this council felt. I think discussion should be in open session. I don't think it's going to be about a contractual matter. I've got a feeling that it could be about trying to build a consensus to come out here to vote in a certain way. So I'm not going to support that.
Okay, very good. Other discussion?
Mr. Chairman, do we anticipate a vote?
Say again?
Do we anticipate a vote when we come back?
Will we anticipate a vote?
Yes, that is correct. We would be anticipating a vote for direction from council.
There'll be plenty of time for discussion then. All right, so we are now at a point of voting. All those in favor of going into an executive session with Mr. Carpenter, Mr. Morgan, the members of the council and outside counsel, returning for a possible vote. All those in favor so signify. Mr. Snodgrass, Mr. Tucker, Mr. Gardner, Mr. Burns, Mr. Bozard, and Mr. Connell. All those opposed? And that's Mr. Jones. The motion carries, and we'll move into executive session at this time. Thank you.
How long do y'all anticipate this executive session?
That's it.
I've got nothing to say. I've got something to say in open session.
Mr. Bozard. Mr. Tucker, Mr. Bozard. Any discussion? With that, we move to a vote. All those in favor, so signify. And did I get you, Mr. Jones? Yep, all unanimous. Off we go. All right, we had retired for an executive session on the item on the page there for urgent discussion of proposed sale of Kershaw Health, Prisma Health, and the serious financial and service impacts it is expected to bring the Kershaw County citizens. Tab D, which is up on the screen, is a press release from Prisma Health. And we move now to the item. Can we have a motion from Mr. Tucker, please?
Excuse me. Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. At this time, I would like to make a motion, reference Prisma Health. I'd like to make a motion authorizing Kershaw County Council to issue a press release regarding the announcement of the proposed sale of Kershaw Health Hospital and its associate entities to Prisma Health. That is my motion.
Very good. Can we have a second?
Second.
Second. With that, I'll read the press release, and then we'll have discussion and vote. Date of this date is the 10th of March. As the County Council in Kershaw County, we join elected leaders in Fairfield, Kershaw, Lexington, and Richland counties in asking Prisma Health to provide more information to the public and to us regarding the impending acquisition of Providence Hospital in downtown Columbia, Providence Hospital in Northeast Columbia, Kershaw Health Hospital in Camden, and the Providence Health Fairfield Emergency Room in Winsboro. All healthcare facilities currently owned by LifePoint Health out of Brentwood, Tennessee. Prior to the March 6, 2020 media coverage publicly announcing the impending sale of these healthcare service providers, we had not been informed or consulted about this important change to the delivery of healthcare services in our communities. Our citizens deserve transparency and a voice in the future of healthcare where they call home. Together, as elected officials and leaders, in the Midlands, we call on Prisma Health to slow down the process of this impending sale and begin a conversation with the citizens that count on available healthcare services in their communities. End of text. Mr. Tucker, do you want to lead discussion?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. First and foremost, I'd just like to thank Mr. Morgan and our outside counsel for helping us and guiding us through this process. And I'm sorry that we're here again, but I feel very confident that we will move forward in a very favorable and transparent way where we all can get information, share information with our citizens, and keep having a thriving hospital. I do not want that hospital under no means to go anywhere, no matter who owns it, and we need to make sure that we reassure our citizens the same.
Other comments? Second, Mr. Bozard, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. I echo your comments, Mr. Turner. We do need the hospital. We want to keep it. We're behind it. And we hope that our staff and legal force can get everything worked out to everybody's satisfaction. Thank you, sir.
Other comments?
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, Mr. Connell, please.
Given the executive session we just had, I don't do this lightly, but I just wanted to let the council know and the public know that I will immediately resign my position as chairman of the advisory board for Kershaw Health. That's a volunteer position. I've been doing it for 4+ years. Chairman only recently in the last couple of weeks, and this fell in our lap. But due to a perceived conflict of interest, I'm going to make that resignation. I'm going to help the hospital in any way that I can. And my choices are either abstaining from a vote or resigning and being able to vote and represent the folks that elected me and weighing in on these important issues. So with that said, Kershaw Health does a great job. I've been able to see the numbers on the improvement in quality of care that's been provided, the reduction in serious reportable events that have occurred at the hospital, and I hope I speak for all of us on some level when I say we only want the best for them. They've treated myself, my daughters, my mother, my father, my grandparents, and we really want what's best for the hospital. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Snodgrass.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to go on record and just make sure we're clear on a few things. First of all, being a pastor in the community, I spent a lot of time at Kershaw Health, and have always been impressed with the organization and as well as, and more importantly, the employees. And that's really, I'm echo what Ben was saying, that our biggest concern is the employees who call Kershaw County, Camden home, who are there 12 hours plus for each shift, caring for the citizens of Kershaw County. And so that, I want everyone to know that's my intentions with this is just one, making sure that they're going to be okay, and also making sure everyone knows that how great of care that they've given, and also that the folks at Prisma recognize that this isn't. I don't want this to be seen as go home, Prisma, get out of here. You know, we don't want you. That's not my intention with this. I'm not here, and that's not anyone else's either. I'm not trying to imply that. Excuse me. I'm sorry. No one else is saying that as well. I think we just want more information. Is what we're asking. I'm not here saying this is a bad deal. I'm just here saying, as an elected official, I would like to have more information. However, that being said, I recognize these are two private entities who have come into agreement. Do they have to tell me anything? Well, no, they don't. I mean, it's two private entities that are doing business. I recognize that. I understand that. But just wanted to communicate that as we issue this, that there's no ill will here towards Prisma. It's just, hey, we'd love to have some more information. We'd love to, come over to the house and sit down and have some dinner with us, and let's talk. And is really my intentions here. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Other comments?
Yes.
Ms. Jones, go right ahead, please, sir.
Well, I hear a lot about we don't want to lose our health care. Well, we're not going to lose our health care. We're going to lose some money. And that's what this is all about. I wish we had talked with you guys before the county administrator and county chairman made their public statements. And I'm going to give my comment. Tonight I have two things to address. And I'm not a happy camper over this. One is uncoordinated press release, and two, the hospital buyout. Like most of you, I was surprised by the news of the sale of our hospital to Prisma Health. However, I was alarmed by the knee-jerk press release from our county council chair and the administrator. Particularly concerning is the fact that these comments to the press were done without a majority of council's consent. Text messaging, gentlemen, back and forth between council members and staff is not an acceptable substitute for open forum discussions. When did we begin making or issuing statements without majority of council's consent on an issue of this magnitude? Council and the administration does not speak for me, especially without openly discussing the issue with me in advance. The administration's knee-jerk reaction was probably the worst thing that could be done. So we're here playing makeup, trying to get something done now. An impulse-driven press release by our administrator and our chairman of county council without any discussion with the rest of this council was very inappropriate. Yes, I received a text message from the chairman and the county administrator. I didn't see it until the very day that the press release was out. I never got a chance to respond before the release was made. I also believe texting council members is just another way to take an illegal straw vote, and that endangers transparency. Should I be so naive as to actually believe, Mr. Chairman, that you had no prior knowledge to the business deal? Well, I was told by 3 separate folks that you were briefed about it before the announcement was made the day before. Your press release also predicts utter chaos in Kershaw County healthcare system, and I have a big problem with that. It said ownership turnover, and this is in the paper, and I have it right here. It says ownership turnover would create untold emotional strain on our citizens and uncertainty with our healthcare employees. Now, I think we did that by the press release we put out. And I would say, how can you predict such healthcare chaos in your press release without having conversations or in-depth knowledge of this matter? So what do I think the hospital sale. It's my belief the county council has no business trying to run a hospital. We're not going to lose our health care. In my understanding, it's pretty much of a common practice, hospitals buying hospitals, whatever. Here's what I do know, or what I do believe at this time. One, Prisma is a South Carolina-owned company. Two, their actions indicate a commitment to the communities they serve. Three, they've demonstrated financial stability. Four, Prisma will provide expanded specialized medical services, neuro, cardiac, other things. Five, we will not be competing with healthcare priorities that originate in another state. So, I'm not going to mix words here. Rather than go off half-cocked with ill-conceived press releases that do nothing but inflame tensions, I think we need to let's sit down and talk. We need to consult with the new owners. They and Kershaw County must talk and learn more about this situation. Council and our constituents, we do have legitimate concerns. No question about that. Communication can alleviate those fears and concerns. The hospital itself is one of, if not, one of the largest employers of Kershaw County. We work hard and spend a lot of money to promote Kershaw County as a great place to locate business and industry. I'm concerned that someone seeing the administrator on TV, reading the chairman's press release in the paper, may believe Kershaw County is not such a great place to locate business and industry. Because healthcare is important to everybody, and the message and the tone we send sets precedent. Let's not alienate this new healthcare provider with unfounded claims and political posturing, as I said. And I want to go again. Along that same line, let's not discourage business and industrial prospects with irresponsible, in my opinion, uncoordinated public comments. Mr. Chairman, I'd even say I would think those kind of comments may endanger your 2030 vision that you've worked so hard on. And one last thing, maybe. And I mean this with all the sincerity in my heart. I'd like to publicly thank, with everything that's going on in our community, I would like to publicly thank each healthcare worker in Kershaw County for their dedication, their professionalism, and caring. You are the first line of defense against disease and infirmity. You pull extended hours, respond to emergency calls, and see dangerous patients day in and day out. You are at work combating illness and helping people while the rest of us are at home. And while we're at home, we have the certainty of knowing that if we call you, you will be there. So I want to say a big thank you to all our healthcare staff in Kershaw County. You know, I'm really disturbed about this. And I want to say that, you know, Kershaw Health, from the very beginning, we got into these negotiations where EMS was concerned. We said, and some of you are sitting out there that we worked with on the deal, we said, we can't take the ambulance service unless we get $2.63 million. You gave us just $2.63 million. We said we would not, this was to get us through 17 months. We would not do any expansion. Well, we did do expansion. We did 9 months within to it. We sort of changed the tone and moved forward. If I tell you I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. And I really particularly don't care who doesn't like me. It doesn't matter. But I want to apologize to our healthcare workers for us making this a big, big, blown-up deal. We could have. These two attorneys that went back with us, I appreciate y'all. You did a good job. And, you know, I could be more inept to work with them if we hadn't have said the things we said, shooting from the hip. But that's my statement. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the County Council.
Thank you, sir. Other comments?
You're welcome.
Mr. Tucker, please, sir.
I'm just going to speak, and I see that we have our past chairman of the board, Ms. Karen Eckford, out there, and our current, Mr. Darrell Ogburn, along with Mr. Gunn, who's currently providing us health care, running back and forth from 2 counties. We thank you, and we appreciate and know the hard work that you did 4 years ago to get this where it's at today. And that work is not taken lightly nor overlooked. This may fall on some deaf ears to some of you, but I'm fine with that, and some of you I've already talked to. And you know where I stand, and I know where you stand, and we're going to be okay. We ain't going to throw the baby out with the bathwater, not unless that's what you want to do. I say to you that the timeline was very short on doing this, and I urge the Kershaw Health Board to have conversation with our administrator, our county attorney, and all that is involved, so you can be more informed as to what is taking place here in Kershaw County with our healthcare system. I say that because we're not the only ones concerned up here. There's bills been filed and being filed over in the General Assembly as we speak. Concern about monopolizing, concern about COPA, concern about different things that may be taking place that may not be all transparency. So with that being said, I just, I offer no apologies for where I stand, and I will support this tonight. I made the motion. And I want to say, Vic Carpenter, I appreciate you sticking your neck out there. What I'm very disappointed a lot of times is we push you out there, and then we drive the bus to run you over. When I say we, I'm talking about county council. And that's not all of us, but some of us. And that's unfair to you. You don't ask a man to do a job and then turn around and then throw roadblocks or try to defeat him in being successful in his job. No, we probably could have said things a little different, maybe had a better time to sit down and discuss like we did tonight. But I was 100% supporting what you did release and what you did say to get the wheel turning. And that was not a discourage to make Prism mad or anybody else mad. It was a position that we were forced to take due to the timeline of information or lack of information. And a lot would like to say that, well, we don't have a role in private entities. Let me tell you what I have learned sitting up here. Healthcare is different from any corporation and any entity that runs out here. It stands on a lot of different rules and regulations. And with that being said, you can't treat it like it's just a regular corporation or business or 500 company, because it falls on the different criteria and laws, state and federal. So with that, I thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Other comments? Very
Mr.
quickly, I think we can go to a vote, and then I'll have another motion.
Mr. Chairman.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, just one other thing. I was going to say that you mentioned another motion, so I just want to make clear that this March 10, 2020 press release is the only thing in front of us at the moment, right? And this speaks to service in our community, having additional conversations, future of healthcare, providing more information. This is the type of press release I would have hoped that we had done initially. As a consumer and possibly producer of healthcare in Kershaw County, I think we do have an interest in learning more about the deal because it'll be directly impacting us. So I can support this March 10, 2020 press release. I just want to mention that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right. No further discussion. We move to a vote. All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Mr. Snodgrass, Mr. Tucker, Mr. Gardner, Mr. Burns, Mr. Bozard, and Mr. Connell. And all those opposed, Mr. Jones, and the resolution passes for the press release. The second item, Mr. Tucker, you have another matter to bring for us.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Please allow me to make this motion. I'd like to, at this time, make a motion to authorize the chairman of Kershaw County, the Kershaw County administrator, and the county legal team to take all necessary steps and work with all essential parties to achieve goals regarding health care in Kershaw County in accordance with the press release issued March 5th, 2020.
Yeah, very good. Can we have a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Gardner. Mr. Tucker, do you want to raise any issues there, please? Lead the discussion.
I just want to say this is no different than what we did when we first sold the hospital and working with the first provider of health care and also with Kershaw Health Board. we authorize our administrator and our chairman of Kershaw County to keep us informed, call special meetings if need be, and to kind of just have all the information so we can make good, sound decisions moving forward. So this is what we're authorizing tonight. There's nothing different than what we did back when we first was sold.
Mr. Gardner?
Just exactly what Sammy says. I can add any more than that.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Mr. Jones?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the County Council. Read the motion one more time.
Yes, sir.
I'm asking Mr. Tucker.
Yeah, I'll be happy to read it. I make a motion to authorize the chairman, just shorten it, the chairman and the administrator and the county legal team to take all necessary steps and work with all essential parties to achieve goals regarding health care in Kershaw County in accordance with the press release.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is where I have two problems with it. One, we're a county administrative form of government. I think you ought to step out of that as chairman of Kershaw County Council because you are an elected official. We're not a county chairman form of government. And I just don't think that matches. We need to let Vic Carpenter do his job. Secondly, this is Kershaw County in accordance with the press release issued on March 5th. Was that the one that you did?
That's the one that was released on Friday.
By
last
who?
week. By the staff and and I authorized
It had your
to be
name
released.
at the bottom of it. I mean, I was just asking.
Yes.
Well, in that case, I will not support this.
Okay, very good. Other comments? Yeah, Mr. Connell.
Mr. Tucker, did you?
I
Okay.
yield.
All
Go
right,
ahead.
thank you. I also cannot support this motion, though I could support the prior press release dated for today's date. As you know, I disagreed with this press release. I think it was made with the best intent and with the best information perhaps that was available. But when I read, as in most mergers and acquisitions, each sale of the hospital has resulted in less healthcare services provided to our community. I just have to reflect back on the time that I served on the board for years and think about the Jerry Psych Unit in Elgin that's award-winning, or the MUSC telehealth program, among so many other programs that have provided additional services to the community. And this is more a nod of the cap to the great services that are provided there. I've actually seen where people have gotten better results in spite of the mergers and acquisitions, and it's an amazing thing that you can switch policies and procedures and some leadership that many times and still produce better results overall. So for that reason, I would have to oppose the motion.
And that would be in the third paragraph of the press release. Is that your issue there?
Yes, sir.
And not with particular any other issues in the press release?
Well, I mean, would you like for me to go into them in particular?
You might want to make sure that Mr. Carpenter has the appropriate guidance when we walk out of here.
Well, sure, I'd be glad to. I've already mentioned these issues, but I'm glad to state them publicly. Next paragraph, for example, Kershaw County will not receive the one-third funding that is afforded to them. I'm not clear exactly, and I do want to learn about this, which is why I'm interested in receiving all the information that can be publicly available through the Freedom of Information Act or otherwise from DHEC or other parties as to what should be afforded to Kershaw County. Mr. Snodgrass, I think, had a great point talking about private parties doing business. Now, I understand there's a state statute that may apply to us, and I want to know what Kershaw County's rights are under that state statute so that we can understand and protect the rights of the citizens to the extent they need to be. But unless we have a right, contractual or statutory, I don't know that we want to get ourselves involved in private parties doing business. So, again, I look to be educated more on what the requirements are under the COPA statute and other statutes that may apply so that we can make sure we protect the rights of the citizens.
Mm-hmm. That's very helpful. Other comments? Mr. Tucker, anybody? Okay, seeing there is none.
Mr.
Yeah.
Snodgrass.
Yeah, David, go ahead.
I would submit an amendment. I would amend that all language but in accordance with the press release that we just released on March 10th.
Or maybe in accordance with the press release, period. Just take it out, because there's a lot of ambiguity in all of this.
Sure.
I don't want to constrain the negotiator, so we just strike with the press release issued March the 5th, and I think the offending words might just disappear. And at any rate, it is clearly understood that Mr. Carpenter has to come in and report to us for guidance. So we're in a discovery phase right now.
So I would make the moment we take the date out and we just say in accordance with the press release.
Okay. So that's a formal motion?
That's a formal motion, yes, sir.
Okay. We have a second to that. I think the motion didn't carry.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
I have a comment.
Jones.
Mr. Snodgrass. Thank you. You know, you were fighting to get his vote, but you didn't fight to get my vote. You could have taken the chairman out of it, and that you might have gotten my vote as well.
So I'm new to the political game, so
I understand.
yeah.
Thank you. I'm not personally hurt at all.
Other discussion? The motion still stands. There's no further discussion. I move to a vote. All those in favor of the motion by Mr. Tucker signify by raising your hand. Mr. Tucker, Mr. Gardner, Mr. Burns, and Mr. Bozard. All those opposed. Mr. Jones and Mr. Connell and Mr. Snodgrass. The motion carries. And now we move on to the next item on the agenda, which is Airport Commission. It's an agenda item placed on here by Mr. Bozard. It's at tab E and on the screen. Mr. Bozard.
Yes, thank you very much.
You want to make a motion to, go ahead, please.
I make the motion that we open this up for discussion and possible vote, period. Thank you.
All right, so we've opened for discussion, so I don't think it takes a motion, does it? Let's go ahead, Mr. Bozard. Go ahead.
And that was it. Now we'll open it up for discussion and possible vote, because I have had some folks to ask me about it, and we need to talk about it and discuss it.
Yeah, discuss the Airport Commission, or what would you like to say about it?
Let me get a second first.
Well, okay.
Second.
Open it, second it.
Okay.
Discussion. Go right
Thank you.
ahead.
Thank you, I appreciate it. The Airport Commission has been around for, I don't know how long, it's been here way before I came. And in the past years, they have done some outstanding work out there. At one time, they had some authorization out there, but now under the present situation, there's no authorization for them to do anything out there now except being an advisory status. I have served on this committee for 6 years, 2 terms, and I spoke with Billy Schwartz, the past chairman of it. I spoke with Ron Prestige, and both of them is in the agreements that under the situation they're working at under there right now, that it would probably be best, since the county has taken the airport over and we have people out there working, that we did away with the commission. I asked the present chairman of it, who is Chris Anderson, sitting right here, to come up, and I would like to ask Chris at this time if he could come up and give us his opinion on everything the way it stands right now.
Yeah, by consent. Chris, come on up, and thanks for coming out, Mr. Chairman. Good to see you.
Thank you. Thank y'all for having me. Mr. Bozard did call me yesterday. I've been on the commission for probably 3 or 4 years now. Just recently, this year, took the position of chairman. When I first started, we were in a, I guess you could say the county was in a little bit of a quandary with the contractor that was doing a lot of work out there. As the commission, I think we really saved the county a lot of time and money by reevaluating some of the contracts that were in place, some of the construction that was going on out there with that particular company, and opened the door for basically them to get out of Kershaw County, which I know we try to bring people into Kershaw County, but in this situation, it was probably good that they left. Since then, we haven't had a lot of input, and that's not from our point. That's from by the time it comes to us, a decision comes to us, it's already been made. I was sitting back there in the back and kind of got a reaction of how the council felt about this whole hospital thing. And if you think back to the situation we had out there with the FBO that recently ended with the lawsuit and everything else, as a commission, we kind of felt the same way probably y'all just felt when Chairman Burns came out there. And actually, a couple of days prior to that, big headline in the Chronicle about the resolution of that lawsuit that none of the commissioners knew anything about until we read about it in the paper. I have, as of right now, we meet every other month. We can certainly change that, but it does feel like we're kind of not really accomplishing anything out there. Like I say, when decisions need to be made, they're made by other people, and we are just kind of, oh, by the way, this happened in y'all's absence kind of deal. I would like to get back to the point to where we did have some input. We did have a voice out there. We recently lost a couple of members just from their terms expiring and no longer willing to serve, and that was part of the reason. As the chairman, whether I should have done this or not, I don't know, but I made a public post on Facebook and said, hey, if anybody's interested in serving on this commission, let me know. And I had several responses, and if any of your emails and phones blew up this week, that's my fault, because I referred them to their council members, because obviously the council has to appoint the commissioners out there. So if any of y'all got a bunch of phone calls and emails, I'll take the heat for that. But that's an example. We do have people that are willing to serve. We just need a way to serve. We don't make a salary. We don't get paid to be out there. It's all on our own time and on our own dime. And there's an interest there. But unless we're going to be given some more authority or just some more input into what happens, there's really, I'm not going to recommend disbanding the commissioner and doing away with it. I don't think that would be right from a commissioner standpoint, but I honestly, we don't do a whole lot. We meet every couple of months, and that's about it. But that's not because of us. That's just, we're not included, and that's been the big thing the whole time, is we just don't feel like we're included in some decisions that we should be.
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. And Mr. Bozard?
Yes, I thank you very much. I've had some of those phone calls also, and that's what made me prompt this. We either need to fill them two positions and let the committee do their job out there, or we'll not replace them, and when the commission time runs up, then close it out.
Mr. Jones?
Mr. Chairman, thank you so much for recognizing me, members of council. Here's, Chris, thank you. Thank you so much for what you do. And let me tell you, Sammy Tucker and I were very instrumental in revitalizing the commission some years ago, when one of the older administrations, about 12 years ago, 14 years ago, were trying to get rid of the airport commission. I've heard your frustration from some other members, and that's our fault, not y'all's. We should have been involving you. You're an advisory group. You go there, you give up your time, you get no money for it. You're interested, you have an interest in this community, you have an interest to serve, you have an interest to do something good, and yet we treat you like a second-class citizen. And I say that not being rude. I say by not giving y'all any information and you reading about it in the paper next day or whatever. I think things should have been clarified, because it was an advisory commission. One, I want to say, wow, when I looked at the agenda packet, I see this in the agenda packet, Airport Commission, then I hear here tonight, we're going to talk about disbanding the commission. Now, I did get a couple of calls later on, but it wasn't in the agenda packet to do anything about dismantling the commission. Here's the way I feel. I think commissions are good. Citizen commissions are good because it's transparent. It gives the citizens an input, and obviously you care about aviation, you care about the airport, or you wouldn't be out there. And I certainly don't want you wasting your time. But folks, I cannot support just throwing the commission out the window. I would be glad to sit down and we can restructure if you want to, or move in that direction. But I think there's a vital role, Chris, for you guys out there. And I think we need you out there. And so that's why I will not vote to disband this commission, but I will support the fact of trying to revitalize, get more private citizens involved. Thank you so much for everything. Thank you.
Mr. Snodgrass, sir.
Mr. Bozard had his hand.
Oh, I'm sorry. Al, go right ahead.
Thank you.
Thank
I
you.
agree with Mr. Jones. That's why I said we need to replace those two gentlemen that's not there anymore. And I think there's only one that's time run up. The other one just flat quit, right? Yes, that's what I thought. He didn't appreciate some of the things that was happening out there, and they didn't have no say-so in it, and he just got disgusted. So I agree with Mr. Jones. We need to do a better job, and we need to maybe revitalize the commission, as he said, and let them have a little more leadway in what's going on out there. The time that I served on there, we had quite a bit going on. We had them new tanks coming in. We did a pump and the fuel ourselves out there and took that away from the fixed base operator. We did some drainage work. We put in the fences out there around it, and we kept pretty going. We had the engineers coming in, meeting with us every month, and we kept something going on with the commission all the time. And I'd like to see us do that again. I'd hate to do away with it. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Snodgrass.
A couple questions, and Chairman and Administrator, you can ask this. And unfortunately, you picked kind of a bad night to be on the agenda because it's 8:05, and I'm probably ready to go home and talk about the airport. However, it's here, so let's handle this. So you have 4 functions, is that correct? To recommend rules and regulations govern the airport, to recommend rates, to recommend policies, and to recommend, or to form any, basically whatever else we tell you to do. So you got 3 functions, is that correct?
Pretty much, yes, sir.
So has any rules or regulations changed in the airport in the last year?
Well, with the county taking over operations out there, I think we're still in the learning game as far as what needs to be done as far as fuel prices. Danny Temper has done a lot of work out there. Just kind of making some more services available to the pilots that fly in out there.
Right.
I think with the county learning how to operate an airport, we're all still in that learning phase of what we're doing and what the county's doing and how the best.
I mean, do you see yourself, I mean, are there licensed commercial pilots that are on the advisory board?
We have a couple of we have one current pilot. We have a former airliner pilot.
Right.
I'm the only roughneck. I'm a mechanic.
Okay.
Aircraft
Which,
mechanic. Some of the people who expressed interest to me from my post are all aviation people. A couple of them are actually airplane owners out there who keep their planes out there.
Because, I mean, the truth, I mean, I'm not an aviator. I'd love, that's on my bucket list, by the way, is to learn how to fly one day. But I see in the military guys, you guys understand this. I mean, on council level and even administrators, so we're surface level. We're colonel, general, whatever, it's surface level, but we need specialists who drill down, who can tell us, so if we make a decision on fuel prices or some sort of regulation, I mean, we're not aviators, but you're an aviator mechanic and you're a pilot, so in some function you could help speak into whether that's going to be good or bad or.
Yes, sir. And like I said, we've got a lot of interest. I'm sorry to interrupt, but we just got a lot of interest from pilots to serve on the commission out there. It's not very well advertised.
Right.
I was kind of surprised of the response, based on the fact that nobody had ever, nobody's name had come up, and just as a last resort is when I put this post out there, and I was a little bit shocked at the volume of responses I got. And again, most of them are either pilots, former pilots. I would like a couple more mechanics out there, but it is what it is.
Mr. Administrator, has there been any changes that's been made that we pitched it to them and they were able to recommend on so that you can make an administrative decision?
Ms. Snodgrass, I believe, like you indicated, that with the changeover from the FBO to county-run organization, we've been focusing on things like personnel policies and employment issues and making sure that we had the airport running efficiently. So we're still learning too on these things. So, and as the construction projects have winded down, there aren't any really new construction projects there. So, so at the moment, no, sir, there's been, I mean, we're still meeting. They're still being provided information, but there's nothing at the moment that we're involved with that rises to that need. Now, that obviously doesn't stop council or the commission from proposing ideas, but at the moment it's kind of in a neutral kind of a pattern out there as we try to get used to running it ourselves.
Gotcha. Yeah, and I mean, because I don't want you guys to have a futile mission. I mean, either we need you or we don't. And that's kind of what I'm trying to wrestle with. Because, I mean, I see the value in citizens having some input and having some buy-in, you know, when they're able to engage, but at the same time, if, you know. So I'm just exploratory questions, so thank you for your time.
Mr. Jones, then Mr.
Thank you.
Connell, and then Mr. Bozard. Go ahead, Jim.
I'll be very quick. Here's where I have another problem. I don't see anything in the agenda for us to vote on dismantling the airport commission.
We're not.
But that's what he was talking about a little bit ago.
It was hoping for discussion, Jimmy, if you have a problem with that.
No, I don't have a problem with discussion. But there was a discussion to have a vote.
That's what I said to start with.
That's exactly right. Thank you, Mr. Bozar. Thank you. So I was right once again. With it not being placed on the agenda, you know, we can certainly discuss it, but I would certainly ask us not to take any action on it. If we do take action on it, let's make sure we post it in the newspaper and, you know, it specifically states we're going to be discussing dismantling the airport commission.
Let me just explore that point because it's a good one. Would it be within what you intended, Mr. Bozard, out of respect for your motion, that we have a discussion on how to re-energize this commission? Is that
Well,
what
my
you're
motion to start with was to discuss it and possible vote on it, yes. That's what
But,
my motion
I
was.
mean, and this, as Mr. Jones just said, a vote may not be necessary. We've got, and really the lack of a real clear definition of where this discussion is going, but there's an opportunity for us to explore, based on the comments here, how we might improve on how we employ.
I will back off on the vote part and leave it, yes.
Is that, Jimmy, where you're headed with this?
Exactly.
Okay. Ben, you're next, sir.
I think your commission, sir, is very valuable. Two things came up whenever I was hearing your comments and some of those on council. First is I think a few years ago, we lost a rather reputable mechanic who relocated. And I know and that accounted for some significant, not all of it, but a significant amount of traffic coming in and out of the airport. And there was a lot of issues related to that the commission could address and otherwise handle. And then, Mr. Carpenter, what is the status on the field drainage project? I know we had some matching funds with the federal government. Is that underway, or is
It's all but completed.
It's all been done?
It's done, yeah.
Okay, so have we seen traffic increase at all after that's been done, or?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And that wasn't obviously intended to increase traffic. It was just intended to keep the airport viable, because it was in danger of being shut down.
Where are we on the study related to the hangars and
On the
improvements?
roofs, we've done that. We've got one roof that we're looking to start working on in this budget cycle.
Okay.
And that would say, Ben, to that good point, Mr. Chairman, that's the reason it's in the budget, is because of your suggestions to us.
Yeah,
Okay.
but you guys are eminently valuable. You have so much more knowledge as a mechanic who works on these types of things, or actual aviators who know about this kind of stuff, than we do. We just have to get good information and make votes as issues come up. But it sounds like one of the major ones just got resolved, and we're going to have some repair issues out there coming up to make sure you can take care of the people. And I think we also discussed at some point as a last issue, maybe carving up the hangars in a different way. People who are renting or using it out there don't have an appetite for an entire hangar themselves with a smaller plane, and maybe offering some better lease or use options out there.
Well, the larger hangars, like what you're talking about, my understanding is that they're not renting the hangar, they're renting basically a parking spot inside the hangar. So you'll have several different aircraft owners will have their aircraft in there. But those are also the hangars they're World War II era hangars. So those are the ones that we're looking at fixing the roof and the gutters and all to basically, because there's no point in having that aircraft parked in there if it's going to leak on it. Might as well park it out on the ramp.
That's all I had, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Snodgrass.
Mr. Adams, I do want to apologize. My wording, when I said aviators, I didn't mean those involved in aviation, because I realize a pilot is only as good as the mechanic who keeps the airframe in the ground. So just as I thought through what I said, I just wanted to make sure that we recognize all those.
Other comments? I'll try to summarize in a minute, but go ahead, Mr. Tucker.
Yes, sir. Thanks, Chris, for all that you and the rest of them do. I'm hearing tonight that, and I would never put you on the spot as far as making you choose whether the commission is viable, not viable, you want to see it one way or the other. But I also hear in your conversation that you don't want to waste your time either. And I say that because I think we need, as council, more time to discuss and talk to maybe y'all individually on what you think. But I will say this, if this will, for this body, disband this commission because of lack of folks want to participate on a non-functioning board or commission, and what I mean by that, they have no critical duties or decision-making abilities and things of that nature. And this was watered down. Let me give you a little history. This was watered down way before Vic ever became county administrator here. It was clipped on the Bobby Bolden's watch.
Right.
Back in like 2002, 2003. So, and I say that because when the airport commission was originally found, it had a lot of teeth in decision making. It really did. It just got reduced over the years. And then with us changing direction, it's changed the way the airport operates. I say that to say all this. If we, Vic, decide that that's what we're going to do in the future, whenever this comes back up, I would like to get some type of plan or commitment from you as staff on how do we keep our folks that's in those hangars renting, airplane owners, and the citizens informed. And what I'm thinking on that, there needs to be something once a quarter or something on that lines where the general public is invited, knows of the meeting, where they can come up, show up, ask questions, give input. I don't think that they ought to just be gone away and we never hear from the public and the folks that's out there renting those hangars and flying those planes in. I think there still needs to be an opportunity for citizens' input. And that can happen without a commission.
Well, and if I may, Mr. Tucker, obviously we do advertise the meetings. We put it on the board outside so citizens can come to the commission meetings now.
Right.
They're clearly not closed to the public.
No, and that's not what I'm saying, but if this is just a public meeting, you know, you may have more people participate because now they feel that they can have a voice versus, well, I don't sit on the board, so why should I go? Or let me contact my representative and they can carry the message for me.
Mr. Bozard, I'm sorry, I went right by you. Go right ahead.
All right, that's all right. I would like to correct Mr. Snodgrass down there. He said that we aren't aviators. I spent 23 years in the military as a mechanic on aircraft. I flew the back seat, one of 3 enlisted men in the Air Force. I flew the back seat for about 5 years. I'm a licensed pilot since 1972, so some of us up here are aviators. And in saying that, I want to appreciate all y'all have done out there, and we're going to give this some heavy thought, so don't give up hope on us, and we will be getting back with you. I promise you that, and we're going to give you the best answer we can. Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Thank you. Other comments? I'll close it out. I haven't been out there for your meetings since in this hiatus, the interim between FBO departure. So we either keep you or we redefine your structure against the disappearance of the FBO. And so that's what I hear as a general theme. Things have changed. Before that, I was a pretty regular attender out there, correct?
You were?
Yep, and I would tell you people here that if you're going to put these gentlemen and ladies, hopefully, to work, you should visit them, okay? If these words are cheap, get your butts out there to see them, okay? Pardon my French. So I think, Vic, we have a task here to refine the board based upon the removal of the FBO, and we'll see what that happens, and we'll bring that back in. Mr. Bozard, can we close out this discussion with your permission?
Sir. Thank you very much.
With that, we move to council briefing, starting with Mr. Tucker. I can't wait. Thank you, Chairman.
Yeah, don't worry, this is not going to be long. No report.
Mr. Gardner.
No report.
Mr. Bozard.
No report.
Yep. Mr. Connell.
Mr. Chairman, one thing, the 11th annual Cars to Dreams Car Show, which has some really cool old vehicles, will be out at Potter Community Park in Elgin, March 14th, 12 to 3 p.m. Some of the neatest cars I've seen around. You know, you have the old group that meets out at the parking lot there near Chick-fil-A, and some Fridays they'll pop out there. It'll be a few of those guys and gals, but these are some specialists. I mean, interior and exterior, they are passionate about old antique vehicles, the classics. It'll be a great event. Thank you.
Mr. Jones?
No report.
Mr. Snodgrass?
No report.
Very quickly, 21st of March is the Clean County Committee. Gets that back out there with Wanda Swan. I ask all of you, councilmen, to walk the walk and not just the talk. We're the award-winning county for litter collection, and we got a long, long way to go. The hospital, it's our job. Why are we doing this? This is our job. This is what we do. I thank you, Vic, for taking the heat. But the way this thing was unveiled, it gave us very little time. And to this date, neither myself or my counterpart in the health district have seen any details. I also want to thank the staff for 50 horses and 50 dogs. That was an amazing achievement to recover them humanely and also to take care of the lady who was distressed at that. And the sheriff and Bobby on the staff, very, very helpful. Virus, I ask yours, Mr. Jones, and many of you have said, I ask your consideration for those who are ill and attention and awareness of the tremendous assets that the county EOC has right in this room with the help of DHEC. Yes, we have a role. That's our job. And for those who suggest that health care begins at the emergency room door, they've probably got to take another look at things. I thank Mr. Morgan for your hard work. Tommy, tell Mr. DeBose to stay in Vietnam.
He's fired.
You have done a magnificent job.
He may not be able to return into the country.
Yeah, with that,
He might be quarantined.
he may be quarantined. And lastly, just so you know, this is not for or against any particular hospital or institution. And I publicly acknowledge that Prisma now has one of our citizens and may yet save her life. And we pray it happens. And we thank Kershaw Health for their continued efforts and on behalf of our citizens. The hospital is an inherent part of this community, and we are proud of them. Mr. Carpenter, over to you.
No report.
Thank you. Mr. Morgan.
No report.
Can we have a motion to retire?
Chairman, let me say one thing. The 24th, we're having no, just a minute. Get your new driver's license and new ID card. They're going to have it at the old gym, right?
Yes, at the rec center, yes, sir.
Yes, okay. I just want to remind everybody to get a new chance to get the ID card.
Motion to adjourn.
First from Mr. Connell, a second.
Second.
Second from Mr. Gardner and Tucker. Any discussion? I'd like to see the various attorneys right after this, and Vic, if you can arrange that, and Mr. Morgan. Moving to a vote, all those in favor so signify. And it's unanimous, and we are adjourned. Be safe.
I know that's right.